All right, it's show time. And today's topic, I want to make sure I don't botch this because this is a really important one. How to create momentum in 6 months. And the reason why I love this topic is because it's not how to create momentum in a day or 2 days or 3 days or 4 days. It's a process as you go. And so one of the questions, Haley, I get the great honor of doing personal coaching with her. And one of the questions, we're going back and forth, and I'm going to introduce her, is I said to her, how did you create so much momentum in the last 6 months? That's because we were going back and forth on different topics. I'm like, people need to hear from you and your incredible story. So I'm going to give a little quick background on some things that I wrote down as I'm doing some due diligence, and I've gotten to know Haley a little bit better. She built to the top of her previous company in 9 months. She's had teams in 5 countries. She's built to the top of her current company in 2 months. She's produced several 6-figure earners in 6 months. And she's a multi-6-figure earner in less than 6 months. She absolutely hates the spotlight. So right now inside, she's cringing, thinking, Rob, stop it. You're making me feel uncomfortable. But I'm telling her just to own her greatness because she is kind of a big deal. She is, even though she wouldn't want to say that, she is kind of a big deal, but she's also just very down to earth, very humble. Haley, it's been so fun working with you. You're such a go-getter. So before we get into this incredible topic on how to build momentum in 6 months, why don't you give us, because you've had some definitely trials and tragedies and things that have helped you as we have different things that perpetuate our why. Give us like the 2-minute version of you, your background, your story, and then we'll dive right into this incredible topic.
Perfect. Oh my gosh, you're right. I'm definitely nervous because I don't like the spotlight, but I'm definitely honored to be here. Quick background about my story. I found network marketing 7 years ago. I had a 9-month-old child at the time, and I fell in love with a product. I quit my job and I became a network marketing professional. It took me 9 months to get to the top of that company. It's really interesting. I didn't know what God had in store in my life beforehand, but 2 years later, we were blessed with a little boy. He is 5. He has Williams syndrome. And I'm going to plug that if you don't mind, Rob, but you can go to williamsyndrome.org, learn all about how amazing he is and amazing his friends are. But he required 7 in-home therapies a week at the time. He required multiple hospital visits. He required open heart surgery. I mean, you name it. I have chills because looking back at those years, it was really hard. And I would not have known what to do without network marketing. I got to stay at home and still be a mom and take care of him and do all the things that a lot of parents aren't able to do because they have to go to work. And so I'm super thankful for the industry as a whole. About 6 months ago, I decided that, rewind. Further than that, in 2019, my husband and I, we helped plant a church. And as I grew closer to God, I kind of grew closer away from my current business. And God just kept telling me, Haley, you need to do more, be more, influence more. And it was time to change the vehicle. And so 6 months ago, I actually changed the vehicle to where I'm at currently. And I guess the rest is history. Yeah, it's been such a fun ride.
Well, I point this out in a positive way. Of course, our goal is to always find that true company we can stay with. There's so many incredible companies. And so I'm saying this in a positive light because, of course, I'm not telling anyone to leave their companies ever. To each their own. Sometimes the best thing one can do is stay. Sometimes one of the best things people can do is leave. That's a totally different topic. But my point is the fact that you've done it multiple times. That says that you're absolutely 100% the real deal. It wasn't just the right place, the right time, because that can happen as one's building the business. And that's why I think today's topic is so important, of how to build momentum in 6 months. Because when you start over, there's different fears and it's like, okay, what do I do? And some of you, it's starting over in your same company where you just got to restart and recharge those batteries and say, okay, right now I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'm sick and tired of being stuck. I'm sick and tired of not being in momentum. And that's what everybody wants. So I know there's so many different directions that we can go. And so I want you to start with any direction you want, and then I'll ask questions upon it. But if for you right now, why don't you give us some of the secret sauce? Yes, I said secret sauce tips to what you did and what you would teach for how someone can create momentum in 6 months?
So I think I have to give you credit, Rob. One of your famous lines is good leaders have vision, great leaders give vision. And I think as a leader, we have to believe so wholeheartedly in what we're doing that it's infectious, right? That you can't help but give the vision. But I think you have to take it a step further, and you have to be able to mentor leaders to do the same thing. You have to be able to duplicate yourself in this vision trap. And so I think back to my first company, and when I started 7 years ago, I think I told you the story, Rob, is we used to do a conference call line, right? So who all remembers like calling into team calls? And one of my favorite segments of those calls was to talk about vision. And I would paint a vision for people. So what could network marketing do for you in general? And so one of the situations that I would paint is a lot of people, their bucket list is to take their kids to Disneyland. And I would paint that vision. I would go over it over and over. Like, what does that look like to you? What does the day look like? What does your kids' face looks like that day that you get to take them? What does the weather look like outside? Like, really imagine and picture yourself in those visions that this company or your company or network marketing can do for you. I think that's the first thing. The second thing that you have to have is a duplicatable system that everyone can win at. I mean, it has to be so duplicatable that the average person who just wants to do this for a hobby can have some success. And I think that also goes hand in hand with creating a massive social selling funnel. And I know that you've kind of talked about a little bit about that, which is kind of just code words for like an ATM, right? But something so powerful that the everyday person can win. I think we forget in network marketing that 80% of the people here just need to make a little bit of money, and they need your hugs and they need your support more than anything. And I think when we start focusing on that and becoming, I hate to brag on myself, but a servant leader, and when we're creating other servant leaders, you can't help but have massive success.
And you've got a saying that you talk about hugs. What was it? We talked about this on the phone.
So I say that 80% of people who are in network marketing are here for the hugs. They're here to be loved on. They're here to be included in something. This might be an escape for them. They may have a bad marriage, and this business might be something that brings them joy. They may have terrible finances, and they can, just step away from that bad for a little bit and just know that you're part of a community. You're part of a, just a culture. And that's something else that's really important to me is team culture. Me personally, we run a one team, one culture operation. So we don't have sub teams. We don't have sub leaders. We are all leaders. We are all helping each other become successful. And I think that starts at the top. We all have to be servant leaders, and you're willing to help people that you don't even earn, you don't earn money off of.
You got a couple of the introverts just got scared when you said the hugs, and they're just like, oh my goodness. No, it's true. I don't know how many people have read the book Start With Why by Simon Sinek. And in the book, there was a really important part where he talks about culture. He talks about culture a lot, but he talks about how people pay to go to church. And he says, even if it's tithing money, donations, or maybe it's just time, they're driving there, it's gas in the car, whatever it is. And they keep coming back and back and back. And regardless if you go to church or not, it's the principle of understanding that it's the culture. And I think sometimes what happens is we see the world through our eyes. And so we think if you're money driven and it's this huge goal that everybody else is that. You think if you've got this issue, I've noticed that typically the objections people get are their own insecurities. So if you've got an objection with money, if you got an objection with can't believe it's network marketing, right? And you want to go in the witness protection program and not tell anybody what you do, right? And I found that those are projected. And so you got to find as you're doing this, understand the power of culture. Even if you have a really, really small team, you gotta begin with the end in mind. You got to start right now with that vision. So let's go. So what do you talked about how you did some of those vision calls, at the beginning, and those exercises and different things. What are you doing right now? And maybe it's things you're doing now, but you would also suggest as far as giving people vision. And when I say what, I mean, like, is it up to the person that signs them up? Do they connect them with the leader? Is it a balance of both? I'm just trying to think right now, because I love the detail that you were talking about of envisioning being at Disneyland and envisioning this and that and being very detail oriented so that it becomes vivid in their imagination so they know what they're fighting for. So what are some things that maybe you do, or some ideas of things that you want to do as far as casting the vision? Is also maybe a process on when and what. I know each company and team and all that stuff is different.
So, we do a lot of things, right? We do team calls, and of course on those, like, we talk about vision, and team calls look a little differently now, right? Like, we do Zooms or stream to our team pages. And so talking about vision there, in team chats, I challenge a lot. In fact, I incentivize with visions. So I think it's easier, or you get more results with incentivizing with vision than sales. So most leaders are like, oh, well, whoever sells $100 first, gets the candy, right? I think long term, because in network marketing, as you know, Rob, like, the seed that you plant today, like, reflects your paycheck in 90 days. And so I do incentivize people to write down visions and to be detailed with what their the last one I did is, I think, the 1 year vision. So in 1 year, exactly on this date, what does this day look like for you? I had people from wanting to build a cabin in the woods, and as detailed as seeing their own parents, like, frolicking in the grass, to another girl, painting the picture of the day she gets to drive up and deliver a boat to her dad that's always wanted a boat, to another girl on our team that lost her son to suicide, and she's doing a nonprofit. She's raising a nonprofit, and how that day looks for her nonprofit that day. So everyone's vision is different. I incentivize people to put down their visions, because I think it's that important. The other thing that I think I'm just so passionate about it, that it just is contagious, right? So I do hope that everyone onboarding, we have a very large organization now, so of course I can't control everything that goes on. I also pop into our team page often to do more vision calls, I guess, videos, to help them continue to remind them of their vision. So it's one thing to have it, but it's another thing to tape it and put it on your mirror, or to read it with your family. I love when families do visions together, because as we all know, this business, it takes everyone sacrifice, right? Like, my husband works during the day, and then, he comes at night, you're like, oh, here's the kids. I got to work until, whenever. And so I love it when families do visions together too, because it gets everyone on board. And a supportive spouse or supportive significant other is a lot of impact to the success that you're going to have here, or with any company that you're with.
Yeah. And getting that vivid can help in involving, if you have a family, involving your family. If you have friends, involve your friends. If you don't have a family, I mean, find ways to apply the same principle. I know for me, we started creating a dream board with my family. And one of the stories that I tell, I don't know if you've heard it on one of the other podcasts, but I tell the story where I recreated this dream board. And so my kids knew if it's on the dream board, it's happening. So at this point in life, one of the goals was to have our own plane. That's since changed, because we were on a private plane and there was a sketchy situation. So dreams kind of adapt. That's another story for another time. It was one of those 10% chance of actually dying that I was in the plane. I was like, okay, maybe the goals changed a little bit. Anyways, my son at this point, I think he's 5 years old, and he starts telling everyone in the neighborhood that we're getting a plane, because if it's on the dream board, we told him it's happening, like, it's done. It's just a question of when. So, I mean, we're at the infancy, right, of starting this business, and we're here trying to make it happen and work, but we got these huge goals and trying to make everything as vivid as possible. And we're trying to have the family part of it so they understand what we're working towards. And of course, we had humanitarian trips. We had small things, big things. We had all different levels of goals, which I think is also important for everybody to put on there, because it will be fun when you look back on those. But it was just funny how he was telling everyone. And I just looked back at some of the goals my wife and I had 10 years ago. And at that point, they seemed like really big goals. And some of them now are very laughable. I'm scared to say some of them because I don't want to come off as arrogant or overconfident, because to some of you, I know that they would still seem like big goals, but I'll just give you at least one. I'm being vulnerable here. Don't worry. I know it's still awesome. But one of those goals when I started was to have a house cleaner come in at least once a month. So that's what we had. And, yeah, that's been happening for a while. But since then, it's just been absolutely incredible and awesome. So got a little bit of background noise. It's like some typing's coming.
Yeah, it's very fuzzy.
That's weird. Got some typing coming in from some random computer, and I don't know how, because I'm not typing. You're not typing. Is there a family member connected to some audio or something? Who knows? We'll have some fun. We'll keep going.
Yeah. So no, I totally agree with the vision thing. In fact, I think I told you this story. When I hit the top of my previous company, that day I was sick and pregnant, and I went to bed early. So it doesn't become official until I'm in Central, so 2 a.m. Central time. I went to bed at like 7 o'clock, and I still hadn't hit it, but I knew I was gonna hit it. And it was so funny because I got so much backlash. People were like, "Haley, why would you not stay up and celebrate that you just hit the top of the company?" And my response was, because in my mind that day had happened 5 months prior. Like I'd already played out the whole day of what it was going to look like, what it was going to feel like. At that particular company, you got sent roses, and you got a call from the CEO, and I'd already played it all in my head, so it was already a reality. So when it did happen, it wasn't that big of a deal. And
that's part of the whole, like, people think it's fake it until you make it. And it's not fake it until you make it. It's something that you actually have to become it in your mind first. And as you become it in your mind, eventually it's going to happen, because you want your brain to try to figure out a way to make it happen. You want your brain to justify it. You want your brain to say, you know what? Like, this is my total focus. Whereas too many people, they don't understand the most important person you're going to have to recruit is yourself. And when you haven't recruited yourself, your brain is goes from focusing on, am I going to do this? Am I going to do the income producing activities today, to the next day to, yeah, I'm going to do this. And you keep going back and forth. And as you go back and forth and you shift and do this, then that's what happens. It makes that difference. And so you guys just have to make sure, as you're really doing this and you're making this happen, that you are focused on recruiting yourself. You're focused on those income producing activities. You're going to have bad days, good days. But if you can recognize it, you can get back quicker into doing the things that you know you need to do. You're going to have rejection. You're going to have fears. That's all part of the process you're building. So you've absolutely smashed it on social media. That's how you started. And as you've crushed it on social media, my question to you is what are some tips? Like, if I'm starting it out right now, brand new, I want to create some momentum, or I want to have any success at all, what are some tips that you have as far as helping out with social media to help me to create some momentum? You can go basic, you can go advanced, you can go any direction that you want.
Yeah. So the first thing I'm going to say is, remember, you're selling yourself, right? So you're not really selling your company. You're not really selling, who you're with. You're selling you. So people buy from Rob, people buy from Haley, whether that's like recruiting or selling, like it's me they're buying from. And so be vulnerable. I think that's a really big piece. People want to try and paint a highlight reel. And let me tell you, I've got my own highlight reel, people. Like, it's over there. But there's also realness. And I'm not going to get all religious here, kind of, maybe. But, Paul says, like, if I'm going to brag about anything, I'm going to brag about my weaknesses, not my strengths. And that's how come people, kind of related to him. And so I think in this business, be relatable. And I think, honestly, people who aren't as successful as I am actually have it easier, because I'm intimidating to people, right? They're like, oh, I can't do what Haley does. And so I actually think that people who don't have a huge following, and people who, aren't maybe successful right now in their current company, which you still could be successful in your current company, I think you have an advantage. And because people can relate to you. And when people relate to you, then that's when they're going to want to follow you. That's when they're going to trust you. That's when they're going to link arms with you. And I think that's my biggest tip, is just be vulnerable and be real.
And you've smashed it with doing Facebook Lives. You're great with stories. You're great with so many different things. And so my question for you is, as you've gone and you've done this and you've done this business on social media and really focused on it. Do you feel like one should talk about their business or products on social media, or they shouldn't, or they should every so often?
I think it's a mixture, right? My situation is just a little bit differently, and I built this business a little bit differently with legalities and things like that. So it was a little bit different. But so if you're going back and you're looking at my Facebook page and you're kind of creeping it, I'm just giving a little tidbit warning there. But I think it's showing excitement, right? People love excitement. They love joy. They love happiness. And that's what people genuinely want. Whether they want money or not, they want to feel how you're feeling. And so I think when you're portraying yourself, not only are you being vulnerable, but you're giving them a glimpse of a joyful experience. And I did a live video 2 weeks ago, basically telling everyone that my success story, kind of. And I got so many messages afterwards. And the number one thing that I got was, Haley, you look so happy and so joyful. How could I not follow you? And so I think that it goes back to that vision thing, Rob, and like recruiting yourself. Like, you have to have such a burning passion inside you that you can't help but like spread the fire. I say this to my team all the time. I say something to the effect of, if you knew where $1 million, an unlimited number of $1 million was buried, wouldn't you be knocking on every single door, telling every single person you knew the like map to get that $1 million? You wouldn't hold that to yourself, like. And so I think in this business, you have to have that type of passion. You have to just believe so hard in what you're doing that nothing can stop you.
That takes time for some. Some it's going to happen right away. Each person's a little bit different, but as you're building this business, just know it's possible. Know that it's a process. Know that, it's impossible. Haley wasn't, she wanted to be 100% committed. I wanted to be 100% committed. I thought I was from day one, but until you actually have trials, you don't really know how committed you are. And so you're going to have each one of those trials test you, and you're going to have to recommit and recommit again. And you're going to have to balance having the short-term urgency with the long-term vision, because if you have too much short-term urgency, you have one bad day, one bad week, one bad month, one bad quarter, you're done. But if you have, too much long-term vision without the short-term urgency, then it's like, oh, someday, next week, next year, 2, 3 years. And so the vision's got to be so clear that it enables you to have focus right now to make the business happen, and enables you to take complete action. And so that's my goal, and that's my challenge for all of you. So the last question I'll ask is, if you were to think of, let's say someone came to you and they said, Haley, can you give me one of your top success tips? Maybe it's something you've seen that you've had success with. Maybe it's something you've seen in commonalities of other leaders. You can go so many different directions. I know we got this awesome typing that I've never had happen going on, and I have no idea how or why. It's like someone's like plugged in here. So can you hear me or no?
I couldn't hear the last part of what you were saying.
So I was just saying, if you had to give a success tip and someone were to ask you what you've seen with success with yourself and with others, what would you give that success tip as? And it could be something different, right? It could just be something you've seen that common people have, right, with yourself, or a common thing that other people have. What would you give as that success tip?
I think it would just be never give up. In my previous company, although I've had massive success right now, and I had massive success in my previous company, right? It's a hill, right? You have valleys and you have uphills. And I think the most important thing to remember is, don't give up on the industry. If you're in your company and you love and it brings you joy, stay there and refine yourself, refine the joy in you, refine why you were there, really dig deep and grab your vision back, right? And just don't give up. And if it is time to go, then it is time to go. And that's a whole different topic, like you were saying. But I think the important thing is, don't ever give up. Just keep going, keep plugging at it. And remember that in network marketing, what you do today reflects 90 days. So you can't beat yourself up day to day with activity or results.
I love how you keep coming back to mindset. And the reason I love how you keep coming back to mindset is because mindset will eat skills and systems for breakfast. And if you've got the right mindset, everything else will take care of itself. You'll figure out the skills, you'll figure out the techniques, you'll figure out the strategy, you'll figure out all the systems, you'll figure everything else out. And so I love the fact that you come back to that, because I think too many people are trying to find external things to help them. And you could study all the skills. And look, I teach a ton of skills and strategies and techniques, but in the end, it's going to start right here. And if you've got this right, you'll figure out everything else. Well, Haley, I know you're crazy busy as a mom and building an empire and crushing your business. And I just wanted to say a huge thank you for coming on and dropping some of your top tips and insights on how to gain momentum in 6 months. I know we'll have to do another one of these, but wherever you're tuning in from, we appreciate you for tuning in. And Haley, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you, Rob. I appreciate it.
Until the next time.
Bye.